guys so much for tuning in today. This is the brand new season of Talking the Walk. I am here with my girlfriend Monique, my whim sister. How are you, sis? How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm well. I'm excited. This has been a monumental year for a lot of us, so I'm just excited to see all that God is doing. But I wanted to bring you on again. We built a friendship over just like the last year. It hasn't even been that long. It seems like it's been a longer time, and just really became kindred spirits and really understanding where we both came from. And one of the main reasons why I wanted to bring you on is because this has been a really time in the media for rape and molestation, and people really kind of taking a look at it now and not just putting it on a back burner, especially within our communities. So I wanted to be able to share your story. But first, can you just share a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yes. So my name is Monique O'Neal, and I'm an herbalist and aromatherapist. I come from a long line of medicine women and medicine men, and I have a naturopathic and homeopathic line as well as an organic bath and body line. But I'm here because I am a survivor of child molestation and rape.
And so, you know, a lot now is also with the Me Too movement, just so many different movements. And God has really laid it on my heart to really just let people share their story, men and women.
That's
so
right.
A lot of times we tend to focus on women, but there's a lot of men that have been affected by this. But I want to go back to that place. So you know, you grew up in regular childhood, just like most of us, but then something changed at the age of 7. So can you share a little bit, you can share as much as you actually would like, but can you share about that experience at the age of 7?
Sure. So at the age of 7, a family member who was dating a male, I was at their house, and that particular individual started coming into the room and fondling my non-existent breast at the time. I mean, I was 7. You don't have any mosquito bites, a handful of sand. And this is the truth. It's just like a handful of sand. And he came in and started taking liberties. My personality started to change. I was on Broadway at the time, so I was a childhood actress. So I've always had like a very outgoing and very extroverted personality. However, I started to become an introvert and really didn't want to interact with people due to what was happening. As time went on, I started to have like these outer body experiences, outer body experiences where I would see myself from above and see what happened. It was like detached from reality for a second.
Right.
Yeah. And what brought me out of that was when I heard him say at this particular moment that he was going to go after my younger sister. And that was it for me, because I'm the oldest of my mother's children. So at that moment, I was like, I have to protect my sister. So when he left out of the room, I was shaking and crying. I mean, I was 7 years old. I ran to the adult in the house. I went to her and I said, this is what has been going on with me. This is what's happening. I don't want him to touch my sister. Protect me, save me, things of that nature. So of course, immediately the person was very upset and angry, and this is family members. So for anyone out there who have had a family member that you brought this information to, and they might not have operated in the way that you thought that they would operate, hopefully my testimony will help you get through this. Because I told that person, when he came back in, he swore up and down. He swore to God. He said he didn't touch me, that he went to go take the garbage out. It went from, you get the hell out of my house, to maybe you were dreaming. So I was told by the adult I was under their care, that I was dreaming, and that I needed to apologize to this adult who violated me. On top of apologizing to them, I needed to write them an apology card. So at that moment, my life was never the same again.
Right, absolutely. And that's what I wanted to talk about, because unfortunately we deal with that a lot, not just in the Black family, but a lot in the Black family, where they don't believe you or they sweep it under the rug. Because honestly, I believe in my heart of hearts that person did believe you, but they didn't want to process that this could have happened. And people start to feel that shame and that guilt. So I understand it. Like for me, when I was molested at the same age, it was the same thing. I remember his mother, because it was my uncle as well, he would come in and he would say, she would say like, oh, what y'all in here doing? Like she knew, but she would pretty much sweep it under the rug, because it allowed her to live in the reality that she had, that her child wasn't molested, but you knew. And so how did that make you feel at that time? As a 7-year-old child, you're coming in, you're telling the truth, you're trying to protect your sister, and this person didn't believe you. Like, how did that make you feel in that moment?
Oh, I felt horrible. I was angry. I was outraged. I felt rejected. I felt as though I had no one to protect me. I felt as though I was worthless. And that stuck with me. Those emotions stuck with me for almost an entire year. And about 6 to 7 months after that, I just couldn't take it anymore. Like I was the extroverted Monique who was doing cats and doing all of these things. However, in reality, I didn't want to do anything anymore. I didn't want to act anymore. I didn't want to do any more commercials. I just didn't want to be bothered with the world because I felt as though it didn't matter. You know, what I felt, what I thought, what I needed just didn't matter anymore. So I took 2 unopened bottles of 100 capsules of extra strength Tylenol. And for those, I don't even know if Tylenol still has the capsules that look like this. Like I may be dating myself, but it was like the red and yellow capsules. And I took 200 of those pills. I did it with milk. So I took those and I felt my body just going through, like I felt sleepy, but then I felt hot, I felt anxious, I felt like I wanted to cry with so many emotions that I felt. And I sat in a tub. Now the tub was completely empty, there was no water in it. So when I really started to get anxious in my body, I felt like I needed to run. So I jumped up out of the tub, and then the next thing I know, I was talking to a woman, a random woman that I've never seen before. And she was telling me that everything was gonna be okay, that it wasn't my time yet, that God had something more in store for me, that this was gonna help other people, and that I needed to express this to my mom and let my mother know, but it wasn't my time yet. And I said, I was begging, I was pleading. I said, I didn't want to be here anymore. I wanted to go. Like, I just didn't want to deal with this life anymore. And she said, no, and showed me different things in my life that was going to happen, that was going to transpire.
And I think that that's great that you're mentioning that, because people don't really like to believe that angels are real. Like, angels is real and so is demons. Let's just be clear. And there is a plan and a purpose for our lives, and God will intercede. Jesus intercedes for us every day.
Yes, he
right
does.
with the right hand of the Father, and he's praying and interceding for us. But what I thought was interesting when we talked about it before was that you talked about how you took it with milk, and milk actually protected you. So you know, we call it, like, we say word like feed on the milk and, you know, chew the meat and sell the bones, but it's just interesting how in the midst of all the things that we're going through, God is still showing us that he's with us, because it could have went a different way. You could have drank the wrong thing, and it would have destroyed, you might have still been here, but it would have destroyed you.
My stomach,
So I love the fact that you mentioned that, because even in the midst of what you were going through, God was still with you. And you weren't even, in a sense, reverencing who he was. Because I remember at the age of 15, I shared this with you, when the doctor told me that my uncle had gave me HPV at the time. I was done. I wasn't trying to hear none of it. But even in the middle of that, God was still showing me that he was with me, and that he had a plan and purpose. While I'm getting all these surgeries and missing all of these schools, but he was still with me when nobody knew what was happening. And I think that what people tend to forget is when you're molested, it's like, oh, she was molested and that's it. Sometimes people live in that place of trauma for years. Because I didn't come out of that moment until I was 28 years old. So I was a 7-year-old, you know what I'm saying? 7-year-old for about, 21 years? And some people are adults, 50, 60 years old, still living as a 7-year-old with the uncle sneaking in the bathroom because nobody believed them. Or they may have believed them and they never really dealt with that. So I'm grateful that you shared that portion, because a lot of people don't want to be honest that they tried to take their life, that they didn't want nothing to do with God, but God still was protecting him. So we're going to take a quick break.
Okay.
Unfortunately, you've had some other things that transpired in your life as well after. So I really want to dive into that. So we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. And thank you guys so much for keeping it locked. We are still here with Monique O'Neal, who just shared about, I wouldn't even say the unfortunate effect. When you're in that woe with me season, it's like, oh, I'm so sad I was molested. Now it's just like, this is what God has used for me. So I won't even say the unfortunate events. It's just something that God has used in your life to get you to this place. Before I jump into the next thing, what advice would you give to someone that may be, like, we talked about it, you're almost 40, but you don't look like a black don't crack. So what advice would you give to someone that may be in the space that you are, but they haven't fully released their molester? Because you talked about how you ran into him one day, and it just took you to a place because you think that you've dealt with something until you see something or something triggers you. And a lot of people don't realize there's a lot of triggers. Like for me, it was if somebody touched my back or something, because that's what he would do. So what advice would you give to somebody that may be struggling to release what that person has done from them to really just walk in a place of healing.
Just know that you're not a victim in this situation, meaning don't operate in that spirit, right? That violation happened to you, and yes, somebody took your voice away, but grasp your voice back. Go and do the things that you want to do. You don't have to operate in the spirit of fear, and I feel like when those things happen and you're opened up spiritually that way, you feel like you're just exposed. You're not exposed. The Most High has you and He loves you. Be honest with yourself. If you feel as though you need to talk to somebody, go talk to somebody. Seriously. Like, don't keep that in. And ultimately, it may be a hard pill to swallow, but you do have to forgive. Forgiveness is not for the other person. Let me be clear. Forgiveness is for you, because once you open up yourself and say, you know what, I fully release this and give this to the Father, then you can go ahead and fly and soar. But until you let go and give it to the Creator of the heavens and earth, then you'll still be held hostage as a victim, and that torment and that trauma will constantly keep coming back to your remembrance. We have to remember that the enemy is here to kill, steal, and destroy, and that's our thoughts and our minds, and when you have that, and our purpose, right? So when you have that trauma, he's always going to come back with something to try to bring that to your remembrance. But when you fully give it to the Father, no matter how many times he tries to attack you, it won't bring you back to that vulnerable place. For me, as a 7-year-old little girl who was violated and not protected, now I can stand here as an almost 40-year-old woman saying, yeah, that happened to me. However, I understand now that a lot of women and men have suffered from some type of sexual trauma in their life, and that you can still survive. You can still be a productive citizen. You can still have a functional business. I'm an entrepreneur. You can still do all of those things, but it's just your testimony and how he pulled you through and how he is bringing us together so that we can relate to each other.
And if you didn't have that testimony, one thing that I learned is that to have empathy, you have to live it.
Yes.
One reason why we're so drawn to Christ is because he's lived what we live.
That's
so
right.
he has empathy for us. He literally speaks, so we're able to find those empathetic moments in his life and to be able to give that to others. So I totally understand that. But also, like you said, forgiveness isn't for yourself, because when I fully forgave my uncle, I was completely healed. Went to the doctor, they like, girl, I don't know what you're talking about. We could never detect that he ever did anything to you. But that came from forgiveness.
Yes.
Forgiveness and bitterness. Unforgiveness and bitterness makes you sick.
It really does.
It really does, and that's what people don't understand. So, all of those things, when you truly forgive that person, you walk in that place of freedom. It's just completely freeing, and you're allowed to walk into who God has called you to be.
Yes, that's
so
right.
I want to kind of jump back though, because we're on this side of healing. But this has been a process for you to get here.
Yes,
So
it has
you
been.
Unfortunately were raped.
Yes.
At the age of 21.
On my birthday.
On your birthday.
On my 21st birthday.
So I wanted to talk to you about that, because when you talked about, when you shared with me what happened, you was like, really, God, you let this happen again? That was my emotions when I sat in that doctor's office. Like, really, this is something else. You know what I mean? And so it kind of took me back to that place where I finally felt like I was getting over it, and now this happens. So can you share a little bit with us about that traumatic experience at the age of 21, and how, how you were feeling in that moment? Honestly, be honest, if you were angry at God, like how you were feeling spiritually, because that's a lot. You were molested, now you're raped. So go ahead.
14 years later, right?
Yeah, 14 years later.
So on my 21st birthday, due to me being molested, I've always secluded myself from people. Sort of, kind of, in a way. Like, I was seemingly an extrovert and the life of the party and bubbly and very personable. However, I wouldn't let people get too close. So at the time I was attending Georgia Tech, and some of my friends were saying Mo, you need to go out. You don't do anything. You always, you're a homebody. You always stay out. And they wanted to go to this popular club in Atlanta. I said, oh no, absolutely not. I'm not going to that club. No, let's go to a smaller club. I actually chose, this is something I had to deal with too, because I actually chose the club that I got raped in. How was that, for a pill to swallow? So I chose the smaller club, slightly adjacent and down the block. I got there 5 minutes before my homegirls did. The bartender that was there was one of my fellow classmates. We both worked in the lab together. And he was like, you're here? Like, why? I was like, oh, it's my 21st birthday. I don't know what to drink. Make some recommendations. So he did. And it was a blue drink. I'm not going to say the name of it because it was filthy language. It was a blue MF, and he made it for me. Now, of course, my family's always told me, when you go to the bar, keep your hand on a drink, don't leave the bar, don't leave your drink unattended, all of these things. So he walks away to tend to the other people. Someone pulled on the right side of my body, like on my skirt. So I'm turning around looking like, who pulled my skirt? My hand is still on the drink. I'm still at the bar. Somebody else come on the other side, or it could have been the same person, I don't know, and pulled my clothes on the other side. And I'm looking, I'm like, what the heck? Just that quick. It doesn't take long. He comes back, he's like, you're good? I'm like, yeah, I'm good. He was like, all right. So he's going about his business. I take 2 sips of this drink, and it tasted really salty. Like a very, very salty, like if I drank salt water or Epsom salt, if any one of you ever had that. And I was like, oh, what is this? All of a sudden, I started to see colors. Everything was like magnified. I started to see the gradation of people's hand movements. And I instantly said in my body, get up and go to the bathroom. I was like, where's the bathroom? I yelled to him, where's the bathroom? Where's the bathroom? He was like, around the corner. Are you okay? Like, what happened? You only took like 2 sips. What's wrong? And I said, no, I have to go. He said, wait a minute. Let me come with you to make sure that you're okay. So as he's trying to leave around the bar, I get up and I'm like, forget this, because I wanted to go to the bathroom and make myself throw up. I never made it to the bathroom. I got halfway across the dance floor and someone came up on my right side and said, I got you. It was a male voice. Then we took a few more steps, and then someone else came and was like, we got you. And then I felt someone behind me. The next thing I know, I wake up and it's bright lights. I actually thought I was dead. I heard a voice, and the voice was calling me, Monique, Monique. And the way that this voice sounded, it was like my soul was vibrating in my body. I thought I was speaking to God. I was like, God, am I dead? Like, you know, seriously,
Yeah.
I really did. And it ended up being my doctor, and he was like, no, I'm not God. I'm your doctor. You're at Grady Memorial Emergency Room, and I want you to know that it's people here that wants to talk to you. And I'm like, talk to me? Well, why am I in the hospital? And he was like, hold on. And he was telling the police at the time, which I didn't know, to wait a second before they started asking me questions so I can just gather my thoughts and really come to grips with where I was. And then when I fully came to and my sight and everything came back, I saw that, no, legit, I really was in the hospital. I had IVs in my arm, and it was like a room full of police officers, and they wanted to ask me a question. I didn't know or comprehend what had happened to me because I didn't remember, but I did feel an overwhelming sense of not wanting any men to be around me. So I was very like, ooh, no, I need you guys to leave. Like, I don't want you here. So one of the officers from the Special Victims Unit was a female, and she asked 2 other nurses to come in, female nurses, and she explained to me what had happened. She said that they found me on Martin Luther King Boulevard inside like a manhole. My leg was hanging out, and somebody was driving by and thought that I was dead. They called the police and was like, I think we just saw a dead body. Come check this out. By the time that they came, they felt and saw that I had a very low pulse. They called the EMT because they were on their way too, because whenever you call the police and say it's a potential dead body, the coroners come out. By the time I got to the hospital, my heart stopped beating. So they had to give me, the electric shock and pump my stomach. I'm grateful that I still have all my wits about me and that the Most High kept me, because they had 12 times the normal amount of GHB that a normal person can even consume. They had so much rat poison and roach poisoning and just different things from this homemade concoction that I shouldn't even be here talking to any one of you today. I shouldn't even be here talking to you and having this conversation. Like, I really should be brain dead with like tubes and stuff inside of my body, or just to the land of, on the other side of the pond, as people would say, like not here.
So I want to ask you a quick question before we take a break. It's amazing that you're in that space, that you're grateful now, but I'm sure you weren't in that space for a very long time. I'm sure you were angry because you said how it was 3 different men, and then your case has never been solved.
No, it
but I wanted to ask you this: how did it make you feel that you went and told, as a child when you were molested, you went and told them what happened, and they said, well, you gotta write them a letter, they write you off. Then you're raped by who? They found 3 men's semen, but God only knows how many men it was.
That's
but
right.
Then they try to tell you, oh, at least you don't have this. So how did it make you feel that each and every time you were violated, it was kind of written off like, well, at least this didn't happen, instead of hearing and seeing that you were violated and just seeing where you were? How did that make you feel? And again, what was your emotions with God in that moment?
I was angry. I was like, why the hell am I here on this earth just to keep being violated? I was like, this isn't what I think I would have wanted to sign up for with you if we've ever had a conversation. You are the creator of the heavens and the earth. Why me? Like, why am I keep getting this type of violation? Like, geez, it just happened. I'm still young. I'm only 21, and it's happening again. Do you want me to be a eunuch? Like, what is this? And I was very upset. For real. I was very upset. I was upset. I was angry when the nurse came into the room. I was angry with the Most High. I was angry with the Most High. I was like, this is some BS. Like, again? Like, really? Me? Why? Like, this doesn't make any sense. Then the nurse was like, well, at least, you know, we've checked for AIDS. You don't have AIDS. You got to come back to find out if you're pregnant. They asked me like 50,000 questions. What my sex life was like. How many partners did I have?
Almost
if I
making
had,
it feel like
I was to blame.
Exactly. Yeah.
Then they said they found 3 different semens, which I fainted. Okay, I fell out. I was like 3 different people. Like, what do you mean? That's nasty. Who does that? Who does it? I fainted. So they broke the little thing, and I came back too, and I was like, this is too much. I just want to go home. Like, where's my mother?
Yeah.
I just want to go home. And they're like, no. You know, we still need to ask you questions. They hemmed me up and down in the hospital for 5.5 hours after telling me that my life could potentially be altered because they were still waiting for the blood results to come back from the AIDS test to make sure I didn't have AIDS or I didn't have everything else, syphilis, gonorrhea, herpes, all of these things. And I'm like, wait, just from going out on my 21st birthday and getting a drink, hell, I should have stayed home. That's how I was feeling about it. Like, this is a bunch of shenanigans and BS. Like, filthy language, expletive, filthy language. And that's what my conversation was like. Like, this is out of control, and I was upset about that. Point blank and period. I didn't sign up for this at all.
So what we're going to do is, even though Mo is making you laugh, it's funny because she's on this other side, but everybody don't get to this place. It's a lot of people that haven't had as many traumatic experiences, and they're still at the first experience.
That's true.
We are going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. And thank you guys so much for keeping it locked here. We are still here with Monique O'Neal, who just shared about 2 traumatic experiences. People don't make it out of one experience, and I really just think it's amazing that you have such a wit about what's happened to you, because that just tells the side of healing that you're on. I'm sure 10 years ago it wouldn't have been this funny, but I just love the fact that you're on this side and you're willing to be this transparent. So you got saved around the age of 15, you a single mom, you got pregnant at that age, and you rededicated your life at the age of 25, and then you're an herbalist and you're doing all of these things. But what I thought was interesting is that, you know, 25 means grace upon grace. And listening to your life, that's exactly what God has done. He has given you unmerited favor. And, you know, a lot of times we take favor as like, I'm going to get all of these things. But a lot of times we get a lot more suffering.
Yes.
That's favor, because God knew that he can trust you with this, because he knew you would be in this place to talk to somebody that might not be able to come out of this. So I wanted to pretty much jump into 2 scriptures here and just kind of you give your opinion on how God has used it in your life and really helped you to heal. So the first one is Exodus 15:26, which says, for I am the Lord who heals you. And it's just that simple, but for I am, because we find healing in the great I am who heals you. And so how have you found that or seen that to be true in any situation, whether it be from, you know, being a single mother at a young age and being raped and being molested and seeing how God has used you? How have you seen that to be true in your life?
Oh, he has kept me. Those situations have actually saved my life, I should say, by keeping me from going above and beyond. When that situation happened to me on my 21st birthday, I was devastated. Right? So that was around the time of the 9/11 situation. And I would have been in New York at the time. You got to think about big things, right? I would have been in New York at the time. My specialty was robotics. So I would have been there hanging out with my friends from high school, doing all of those things on that specific day. My mental wasn't there. I mentally was not capable of even trying to travel out. So I thought about that.
Wow, that's good.
Yeah, because I was like, you know, as I got older, I was like, wow, you know, I could have potentially been there. I had plans to be in New York City at that particular time with my friends who worked at Merrill Lynch, who worked at Cooper Lineberg, to visit my aunt, who worked in a building on the 98th floor, like all of those things. We just never know how he's going to operate in our lives. It also kept me for being very open. I was a prideful person, very prideful. Didn't want to ask anyone for help. And I mean, I can understandably so. I was molested at 7. I felt like everybody had given up on me. I was suffering from the spirit of rejection. And I didn't want to ask anybody for anything. I didn't want to have anybody I didn't want to be vulnerable, is what I'm saying, to anyone. So I thought I can do everything on my own. I didn't need spiritual guidance for anything. So I was like, I'm just going to do it myself. If I'm just going to do it myself. And he showed me, no, you can't do it by yourself. Like, the world is a crazy place. This wilderness is very crazy. This is what the world can do to you. But this is how I'm going to heal you. This testimony that he has given me has helped so many people. It really has. Even from me being resistant and not wanting to go to the rape support groups. Like, that situation stopped me. I never completed my degree in electrical and computer engineering. I was a senior, had less than 30 credits left, but couldn't take being around a male-dominated industry. However, he used that to propel me to what I'm doing now, which is helping individuals, right, holistically, dealing with spiritual trauma and dealing with womb trauma. And as a result of that, I've helped over 400 men and women with their spiritual trauma that they've suffered from, because I used my situation that he has given me, right? Because the gift is his, the glory is his, okay?
That's right.
I'm just nobody at the end of the day. He gave me these gifts and abilities, and I give it back to him, and he has allowed me to use those to help heal his children, and I'm grateful for that, because spiritual trauma is something, and sexual trauma is something that we really do as Christians need to address. We need to address that.
And so that leads me to the next scripture, which is, he heals the brokenhearted and bandages their wounds. And that is Psalms 147 too. And the reason why it's interesting that you said it, because you said that he's giving you a testimony to help others to be able to heal. And we have a bandage on. If you open it, you can still see the wound. However, he bandages the wound, meaning that he allows you to open those, just like he did with his scars, for us to be able to show people what we've been through, but to also show that, you know, the covering is found in him. So how have you, I mean, in a sense you kind of answered it, but how have you seen it as well to be true? Not even just in you know, doing herbalist, but just in your life with those around you, with your own children. You have 3 beautiful children who love you, who you take care of well. You have 2 daughters. They've never suffered this. You know, God has used you to deliver things off of your bloodline. So how have you found that one to be true as far as bandaging your wounds?
Just being vigilant. As parents, we have to listen to our children. We cannot take the voice away. Television is not your babysitter. Your smartphone is not your babysitter. If you notice any type of erratic behavior in your child that seems to come out of nowhere, pay attention. Pay attention, because nothing comes from nowhere. You have to pay attention. And you can't just think, oh, I'm going to be lonely if this person does something. At the end of the day, the Most High ordained you to be the temporary, physical, earthly parent for his child. And you have to take that seriously. To have a child is a blessing, no matter how you may feel about it. I was 15 when I got pregnant. I was like, oh, really? My life is coming to an end again. I mean, I've had situations. I opened the door for that, by the way. But I've had situations upon situations. I'm like, oh, woe is I. Why me? So we have to be vigilant. We have to pay attention to our children. And we have to get into that word. Getting into the word and knowing that we can break generational curses. We can break these spiritual bonds and chains that our ancestors and or we have allowed ourselves to get locked into. It's a true thing. And we have the ability to break those chains, but we can only break it through his only begotten. We can only break it through Jesus. We can only break it through the Most High. And we have to understand that. Like, we really got to understand that this world was not given to us. It was given to the enemy when he was banished here. And since he has the world, these worldly things are going to come. And like Zarina stated in the beginning, when we're born, we're assigned with an angel and a demon. So those things back in the day on Looney Tunes, where you had the angel on one side and the devil on one side talking to you, that really does happen. And they do whisper things. They do. And we have to know his voice. So knowing his gifts and his abilities and going through what I've gone through, I was able to bring that off. Like, I was the last person in my family's lineage from my mom to be a teen parent. I broke that spiritual curse, right? I broke that generational curse. My children didn't suffer from child molestation or rape. I broke that generational curse. My daughter is 23 years old and she's at the University of Pennsylvania, a biology student, and she never had to deal with anything that I went through. And I wanted to make sure that I'm very selective on who I expose my children to. I'm very selective on who I let inside of my inner space, and you have to be protective. Not overprotective of your child where they can't just grow, because they're gonna have to forge out in this thing that we called life, right? This wilderness on their own. But give them the tools and the resources. If you raise a child up to the way that they're supposed to, they're not gonna depart from you. I'm paraphrasing the word, but that is true. They're not gonna depart from what it is that you instill in them. And knowing, just having grace and mercy on yourself, right? It's still times that it may come up in my mind and I'm like, wow, that was kind of jacked up. But I'm grateful for where I am now. And I had to have that conversation with the Most High, that if I had to go through everything that I went through in my life just for him and I to have a close relationship, it was worth it. Because at the end of the day, it's about him. It's not about me. It's not about you. It's not about your boo. It's not about your man, your wife, your husband, your kids. It's about your relationship with him and who you are and what his purpose for you is here. And I think we get that convoluted when we think that everything is about us. No, it's about him getting the glory and what what he has in purpose for your life to magnify to him. And I think we need to remember that as believers.
Absolutely. So last question, and before I close this show, one word would you say that defines who you are after being through all of these things? I'm sure 10 years ago it would be angry, mad, or something like that. Mine would have been that.
Filthy language.
But what would it be now? What one word would you say now to describe who you are?
Faithful.
That's good. You are faithful to your cause, because
Faithful.
that's very good. That's a good point. So if you're watching on today and maybe you've never been a rape victim, maybe you know somebody's maybe been a rape victim, maybe you've never been a victim of everything, but you just don't know who Christ is. God has led you here on today to be able to hear Monique's story, to just simply understand that he loves you despite of all the things that you've gone through, despite of all of the things that may have come against you. These are just things and tools that God has called you to in order to use it to bring someone else to him. So if you haven't accepted in your heart, or maybe you backslid, and maybe you have just decided, you have accepted Christ in your heart, but you've just decided that you want nothing to do with him. Maybe it's been a situation where numerous things hit you. Maybe someone passed away, and then you were raped, and then you lose your house. All of these things happen, but maybe you're in that place and you're deciding that you want to give your life back to Christ. We would simply invite you to say, Lord, I am a sinner. I invite you into my heart. I thank you for Monique's story. I thank you for her faithfulness and everything that she's endured in order for me to hear her on today. I ask that you would help me to trust you and walk this out with you. I do believe that Jesus is the Lord and Savior, and he interceded just for me to be sitting here on today and to hear Monique's story. And it's just as simple as that. We are thankful for you. We're thankful that you're going to be in the kingdom with us because you decided to rededicate your life back to Christ. Well, if they wanted to find you, where can they find you?
I'm at Softly Rugged everywhere. Softly, yes. Softly Rugged. You can find me Softly Rugged Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter, Periscope, and YouTube. I don't have any YouTube videos up now, but they're in the works, so maybe not YouTube. Awesome. But I'm Softly Rugged everywhere.
And you can follow me on Instagram, Zarina Lomax 33, as well as Zarina Lomax on Facebook. You can like Talking to Walk Philly on Facebook. You can keep an eye out for the radio station and the production space that is in the works now. And you can find me here every Saturday morning at 9:30 a.m. with people just like Mo that's willing to come here and to share their heart. So to God be the glory in your perseverance as well as your faithfulness, because you are definitely faithful to him, and he's going to honor that. Amen. So I thank you so much for sharing. Sis, can you pray us out? Do you mind? You can pray whatever you want to pray.
I speak Hebrew, so we're going to use Paleo Hebrew real quick.
You can do what you want to do.
And that's what we're going to do. Okay. So, Kahalal Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai. Father, in the name of Yahweh Shai, I just thank you for letting your word and your vision come forth today, Father. Thank you for breaking those spiritual chains that need to be broke, Father. Thank you for allowing my testimony to touch someone's heart, Father. Thank you for not giving up on us, Father. Thank you for letting us know, despite what we've gone through in this life, what doors we may have opened on our own, or what doors our ancestors may have opened up for us, Father, that you are there and we can break those, Father God. I just thank you for your grace, your mercy, your long suffering, and your tenderness and your kindness, Father God. I thank you for sending your only begotten Son, Father God. I thank you for giving us the ability to scramble and break the plans that the enemy has against us, Father. In the name of Yahweh Shai, I just thank you. And Yahweh Shai is paleo for what we call here in America Jesus Christ. And I just thank you for his love and his kindness. And thank you, Yahweh Shai, for interceding on our behalf. And thank you for the Ruach HaKodesh being upon everybody's hands that has anything to do with Serena's ministry. In Yahweh Shai's name, we pray. Amen.
Amen. And thank you guys so much. And we'll be back next week.